on the show is when I really had to face my demons, because when you're on a reality show, a lot of people think it's just this blast, but you're isolated. We had no TV, no radio, no internet. Like, you're alone for 24 hours a day, and you're working out trying to win money for this game show by losing weight. And that's when things really hit for me, and was like, I am here because of the decisions I made, and I'm trying to penalize myself for it. Like, I felt like I didn't deserve any happiness. I didn't deserve success because I failed at Iowa. And as the show continued, I started to realize this more and more. And then after about 3 months of filming, we were sent home. And when I went home, I told myself, I'm like, you have to go talk to Gable.
Matt Hoover won state titles. He won the Biggest Loser. But as he learned, those victories didn't guarantee him a lifetime of success. He's battled adversity, regret, his weight. However, with the help of a strong support system and some tough self-reflection, Matt has found peace within himself. He lives in Washington State with his wife and kids and coaches at Cascade Christian High School. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy Matt Hoover. In the heart of West Union, Iowa, lies a hidden gem in Euphoria Coffee. Owned by local residents Nicole and Shane Havenstreit, they source everything they can from local vendors. From hot and iced drinks, to savory breakfast burritos, to baked goods, to botany tea, and even homemade waffles, Euphoria Coffee is a place your entire family can enjoy. You can find more information at drinkeuphoriacoffee2go.com or visit their Facebook page. And we also have a special gift just for you. Next time you stop in, you can get a free baked good with a $20 purchase. Just mention the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Euphoria Coffee. Our purpose is deeper than coffee.
We're off and running.
All right.
So what's up? What are you doing?
Well, I'm at work right now, but I'm excited because this afternoon we get to set up the wrestling mats. Wrestling season starts for us out here on Monday.
Nice.
Put our room together, but yeah, it worked out good. Traveling, I work in pharmaceuticals, so I'm in the car a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you on the animal health side or are you on the human side?
I am on the neuro side for AbbVie, and so we work with migraine patients and neurologists and stuff like that. And it's an awesome job because it reminds me of wrestling. You know, you got to do your job for the company to do well and your team, you know, and so it gives you that competitive side that sometimes in jobs you lack that. You know, you go into something like get you a paycheck, like, okay, I'm making money, but it's good way to pay the bills. But you know, I still coach. I coach at Cascade Christian High School, and I run a club out of my house. We built a wrestling room, and so we're still very involved in coaching. But pharmaceuticals pays the bills.
Yeah. Do you posted on Instagram just the other day about like all your Christmas stuff in your, is that in your basement or is that in the wrestling room?
That's the wrestling room.
Okay.
I go nuts at Christmas. I love it. Like our house, we decorate like crazy, and it's flooding out of the attic. But yeah, so it's that's my garage. It's a 2-stall garage that we turned into a wrestling room. Felt pretty good.
Nice. Yeah. How long did that take you to like set all that stuff up in your basement? And what do you do it for? Are you just making sure everything works?
Yeah, I plug in everything, make sure it works, because we go like, I've got 3 acres and we decorate the whole thing. So I've got like probably 70 giant blow up things that go in one section, and lights and the different Santas and deer. And so it's a little insane, but it's like, I don't want to put it all up and then plug it in and then try and figure out if it's working, because being out here in Washington, it's the rainy season. And so I don't want to be out there in the rain trying to get that stuff to work, figure out which bulb's broken and why it's shorting out the whole thing. So
yeah. So how long does it take you? Sorry, first off, do you do this for any other holiday, or is it just Christmas where you go all out?
It's just Christmas. My wife decorates the house for every holiday, but Christmas is the only one that I go crazy on. I've spent probably 5 days so far. I probably got another 10. So it's probably taking about 2 weeks to get everything done.
Why? Like, is there a reason why you just
Because
go
there's
all out?
just so much. And then I'm pretty crazy about how it looks too. Like even on the house, I put them all up and I'm like, that doesn't work. So I took them down and got different lights, so it's like kind of nuts like that. But then also just the amount of time it takes to get all the trees done and all the bushes, fence. I mean, it's like the funny thing is we live down a private drive.
Mhm.
Nobody sees our lights. Like we we have 3 acres. My neighbors have 3. Other neighbors have 7. So it's like you don't see it. It's my wife. She's a hairdresser, and
Yeah.
so her clients come to the house because we have a salon at the house. So them and my kids and my wife are the only ones that see these lights. And I'm like, I think I'm crazy because most people would be like, "Hey, drive down here and put it to music." But so it's just like it's something that it started before my kids were born. My wife's like, "Are you going to decorate for Christmas?" I'm like, no, I'm not decorating for Christmas. And she really wanted me to. So I went and bought like one little Rudolph blow up and put it in the yard. And then I had kids, and each year it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So
Mhm.
last year I had to get more power. I ran out of power. Like I stopped putting lights up when I run out of power.
How why did you start doing this? Like what did you just is this something that's nostalgic for you or
Yeah.
is it just you just love Christmas that much?
No, it started out. I was not a big Christmas fan because it was always during wrestling. So you
Mhm.
couldn't
Yeah.
really eat. And we didn't come from a family that did Christmas decorations, stuff like that. Like we had our Christmas tree. But once I started it the one year and I did it again the next, and then as my kids got older, they start like, oh, look at that, so cool. And then
Mhm.
it's that. It's like there's no like I'm not like super crazy about Christmas where I'm like, this is the best time, like the elf, from the movie
Yeah.
Elf. But it's just like each year I'm like, how can I top what I did last year? What do we got to
Mhm.
do? So it's kind of become a challenge now. Like
Yeah.
honestly, my ultimate goal is that I want to find an RV and a station wagon and recreate the Griswolds in my front
Yeah.
and like do the house that way. I mean, just go
Mhm.
obscene. But my wife's still kind of like, I don't think that's a good look. But if I find one on Facebook, an old
Mhm.
motorhome or something,
Yeah, yeah.
buy it. I'm gonna do it for just to use it for Christmas.
When you said you go, you want to make sure you plug it in and it works and there's not just one light bulb. Oh, that's the first thing I thought of was the
Yeah,
Griswolds and how, you know, man, it could be just a switch instead or something,
yeah, I know it. Every year I think the same thing. And then when I'm up in the ladder, I'm like, if I'm gonna go out, this might be it. Falling off this freaking ladder and hanging Christmas lights.
Yeah. The funniest thing that you said to me anyway was that nobody sees them. Like,
Yeah,
like what?
yeah. I mean, you see those houses where people drive by all year, all Christmas long, and there's this big thing, and it's like
Hmm.
nobody sees it. I mean, it's pretty funny. And last year we had our first team Christmas party. We brought everybody out. I think we had 70 kids there,
Wow.
and they were shocked that I was the one that put the Christmas lights on. Like they think of me a grouchy, intense coach, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Your wife has you do this?" I'm like, "I do this," and they're like, "No, no way." I'm like, "Yep." And just the other day, someone did the same thing. They're like, "Are you all are you mad because your wife makes you do this?" I said, "I do this for me." And they said, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." And my wife was just laughing because most people, when they meet me, they're like, I don't have a lot to say usually. I'm pretty quiet. Sometimes you
Mhm.
can't tell if I'm mad or what's going on. So the thought of me being all about Christmas lights just shocks people.
Yeah. I
But
love it. When do you put them up? That's kind of the big question my wife is going to want to know. When do you
I've
put them up?
I've started now, but
Okay.
I don't turn the official lights on until the day after Thanksgiving. So, and then they go from then until New Year's, and then I shut them off. And they usually stay on the house though until after wrestling's over. Then I finally get because it takes forever. You have to let them dry out, pack them up, and it
Hmm.
seems like every year, no matter how much I try to be like this year, I'm gonna be organized. The lights
Yep.
get tangled and freaking stuff messes up. But so it's a long process. And then electricity bills goes up a lot this time of year. But
Yeah.
I love it.
I was gonna ask how long it or not how long, but how have you gotten it down to a science of like putting these things up and putting them up the right way so stuff like that doesn't happen, but it sounds like it's good in theory, but at the end of the day, it's just a
Yeah. It seems like it, but it's like last year I had another power thing run, and then once it started blowing, I'm like, okay, I got to stop because I can't handle the light. The amount of lights can't handle the power. So this year, I'm like, I don't know if I had time to get another one run. So it's like you just go until the fuses keep blowing, and then you're like, okay, I guess I'm done.
wow. That's good though. That you have something like that you're passionate about, that's fun, that people could see, and you know, like you said,
Yeah, it
doesn't
is.
show you as just a big grump.
Yep, it is. For me, it's also I like, putting them up and seeing how it all works out and
Mhm.
what it looks like afterwards, and knowing that like the few people that do see it get joy out of it. Like our
Yeah.
neighbors, their driveway is a little bit away, but they have little kids, so they
Mhm.
get excited and walk over. You see, it'll be dark out, and all of a sudden I see this little shadows walking through the yard. And you check out. Last year I got this aircraft carrier with Santa launching his reindeer. It's like 20 feet long. And he's just standing there staring at it, looking at it. And he just gets a kick out of it. So, as you get older, you start to appreciate those kind of things more, that other people's joy. It's fun to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And you know, um gosh, what was I gonna say? That it's nice. It's probably fun to look back on where you started to where you're at now, and like just what it's become. Because like you
Yeah.
said, you started with just probably a little few things, a couple blow ups and
Yeah.
Santa, and
I
now it's
still
like a
have, this will be almost 20 years now that I've been doing this. I still have the original reindeer. It's a
wow,
little Rudolph, but I've had to sew it. I've had to put new lights in. Like I will not let him die because
nice, good.
exactly like you said, that it reminds me of like you started with this one little thing and now
Mhm.
you've got a yard full of blow ups and then lights on this and different lights on that. It's fun to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is why I like doing this because we just spent, I don't know, 10 minutes talking about Christmas lights,
Yeah, you
which is
never know what
awesome
you're
because
gonna
that's
hear.
just that's who you are. That's a part of you, and that's something you're
Yeah,
passionate about.
sure.
You said your coach where again?
Cascade Christian, it's a small
Okay.
private school here in Washington. Um, I started coach at the high school level at a big high school. And then when my kids got into high school, I was like, I want to see them wrestle. And
Yeah.
if I stay here, I'm never going to see it because I can't just be like taking off and like, oh, my kids got like that, to be a good
Mhm.
coach and have a good team, you got to commit to it all the way. And it
Right.
was tough to leave because we were stacked. We just won the league tournament, had multiple state qualifiers. We were building up a heck of a program, but I knew I had to go. And, so I made that decision. And what's funny is I went to my kids' school. They didn't even have wrestling anymore. And I said,
Really?
hey, I'd like to come in here and help my kids. And they're like, okay, well, if you want to start it, fine. And the first year we had 5 kids wrestle. And
Gee, wow.
the next year we had 20 some. And here we are, going into my 5th year now. We'll probably have 50, 50 some kids, which is huge at a 1A school,
Yeah.
all school. So it's really grown, but it's really been fun to see it. It's been 100%. I had a kid, a sophomore that was in the state finals last year that started wrestling in 8th grade and became on board, so they didn't have any wrestling and now they're in the state finals. So, I mean, it has been such a cool process to watch this program grow and watch these kids grow from knowing absolutely nothing to being
Yeah.
state finalists and state placers. And, it's changed my perspective on coaching because when I got into it, it was, I come from Iowa where you
Mhm.
grow up doing that and you have these coaches and you just expect that everybody else has been wrestling forever and they haven't. And it really shows you like how good of a coach you can be if you focus on the fundamentals, not the intensity and wins and losses, but like teaching kids how to wrestle the right way. And
Yeah.
you go from, having nothing to, I think we've won the league the last 2 or 3 years in a row now
Wow.
with kids that have never wrestled before.
That's amazing.
You know?
And and it's opening doors for them that they probably had no idea, it could open.
Yeah. And, before I came on board, we were a football school. Our school's in football playoffs. And I feel like we're really becoming a wrestling school, and the coaches bought into it on the football side too. Like,
Huge.
you got to be, if you're not doing basketball or doing something else, you got to be wrestling just to learn how to move your feet, learn how to move your body. And I think that gets overlooked because some coaches are like, oh, I need my guys to gain weight, lift, and football. And we do it wrestling too. But it's like wrestling can help those guys a lot more than being in the weight room for all year and bulking by getting fatter, and, they're because they gained 50 pounds that they're suddenly going to be a great football player. But, our heavyweights are some of our best athletes.
Yeah, it's kind of scary sometimes when you see those, college kids or NFL linemen or whatever that are moving and they're big and they're agile, and you're like, holy cow, like that's kind of scary. It's a scary
It is
thought.
coming at you, and they know how to do things.
Yeah.
Hand fighting, it translates to football.
Yeah.
Footwork and that stuff. I mean, it all translates. Not all sports translate to wrestling, but I truly believe wrestling translates to all sports, no matter what it is. It's going to help you in that sport.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good take. Yeah.
And we've
I
had,
second that.
last year we started a girls team, and we had
Really?
volleyball players coming out. They're like, oh, I don't know about this. And I said, listen, imagine how quick you have to be to get across that floor, or imagine how learning how to fall and get back up quickly. I mean, those things wrestling can help you do. Oh yeah. And so, sometimes you have to sell it, not as wrestling is going to make you tough. You're going to be mentally tough. It's like, it's going to help you in the other sports, because not everybody's passionate about wrestling. They come out because their friends did it, or it looks cool, or, we got pretty sweet gear now and they want to have that, or we do a poster. But all of a sudden you start talking about their sport that they really love, maybe volleyball or football, and saying this is going to help you. And then they develop that love for wrestling. Because if you've wrestled your whole life and you're coaching, you want everybody to love it as much as you. But the fact is, not everybody does. And not everybody wants to put that work in to be a state champ. They want to be a part of the team. And then they see that it helps them. I've got kids that aren't that great at wrestling, but they're good at their other sport, and they still wrestle because they see what an impact it makes on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially at the high school level, I was a volunteer last year for a year, and I mean, kids go out and it's not their first love, or they're new to it, and they're just like, my friends are doing it or whatever, and they're figuring it out.
Yeah.
Basically. And so it's like,
and
they are
every year with the new kids that join, like I said, we don't have a feeder program. So these are kids that never wrestle. I tell them, you have to give it 2 weeks before you quit. And then if you do, that's fine, because you can't force a kid to love wrestling, love practice. And sometimes it's a detriment for them to be around the kids that are there. But if they can make it through that first 2 weeks, they almost always stay. And I think in the past 4 years, we probably had 2 kids walk away, say, this is definitely not for me, and say, hey, okay, that's no problem. I'm not a coach that tries to keep kids out. I think that, and I might be a little different on that, but I have found that the kids that you have to talk into wrestling, a lot of times the staying, they aren't going to be bought into the program, first of all, but they're not going to be a good practice partner for the other kids too. You got to look at that. Like, you have a small amount of kids, that matters. If they're not showing up because they don't feel it today, they're not feeling it, that affects your whole room. It affects kids. And, so that if they say they want to go, I say, great. If you decide to come back at another time and give it a shot and want to commit to it, we'd love to have you back, but it won't be this year. It'll have to be next year. We don't want kids coming in and out as they feel. You can't build a program when you let kids just walk in and out when they feel like wrestling. Nobody feels like wrestling every day. I don't feel like going to work every day, but I do it, because that's what I have to do. And to be a part of our team, you have to be committed to it.
Yeah. And that separates kind of the good from great, is doing the things that you don't necessarily feel like doing. You could love something. You could love wrestling, but there's still probably days where you wake up and go, I don't want to do this today. You could love your job. You could love whatever it is. And there's still going to be days where you're like, ugh, I don't feel like it today.
But the thing of it is in order to succeed at anything, whether it's wrestling or your career,
Yep.
you have to tell that voice to shut up. Like you
Yeah.
cannot be successful only doing it when you feel like it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. I think a lot of kids feel like there should be this joy and excitement in everything every day. And, you know, they
Right.
see TikTok and Facebook and they see the high level videos and they're like, oh my gosh, we got to learn this. Like you can't even do a double leg yet. Why am I going to show you what David Taylor's doing at the world championship? You know, like be realistic. And that goes back to it though. You got to put in the time every day and then you get to go to those levels. But if you
Yeah.
don't do it all the time, you're never going to get there. So it's a wrestling. It's a life lesson that you learn from wrestling is that if you want to succeed, you got to put that hard work in. You got to take the beatings. You got to be able to come back from the setbacks and the losses. And that's how you get there. And then once you get there, you got to keep doing that stuff.
Yeah, right.
You can't win. There's no end in wrestling as a coach or as an athlete. There is no end where you can finally sit back and say, I did it, because it's always changing.
Yeah. And I'd say that's a tough reality for people to realize is that like there's no end. A lot of people think that there's an end to stuff, you know, like, oh, you win. Okay, that's it. Right. Okay. And it's like, no, now you just kind of keep going. And there is no finish line. The finish line doesn't exist.
There is.
And
I
that's
think that was a lesson I had to learn the hard way. And that, you know, I came out of high school and was one of the top recruits and then signed to wrestle at Iowa. That was my goal from the time I was listening. I want to wrestle the University of Iowa. I want to wrestle for Dan Gable. But then I got there and I kind of settled in. I did it. I'm here.
Yeah.
And now I'm watching returning that. My workout partner my first year was Joel Sherritt, a returning national champ, beat the crap out of me. And it's like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, and instead of reassessing and saying, okay, I need to keep developing and getting better. For a couple of years, I was doing pretty good. And then I started melting down. And that's when everything went haywire. And that's why I take it in today. I am not a coach who tells you how great I was. I tell you about the failures of my wrestling career because of the choices I made. You know, I had injuries, but I didn't not become a national champion at Iowa because of the injuries. I didn't become a national champ because of choices. You know, staying out too late, enjoying the Iowa wrestler, you know, luxuries that come with being able to go out and be like, oh, you wrestled for Iowa, you were so, let me buy you a beer. Yeah. Oh yeah, I am. I'm awesome. And I hadn't done crap, and I never did do crap at Iowa, you know, and that was my fault. I think that's those things that we tend to, as coaches, only talk about how disciplined we are and how great we are. And I want a state title and you can too. I'm like, hey, I know what it's like to be tempted. I know what it's like to want to go do something else besides wrestling. But let me tell you, it's not going to pay off the way you want. And it might for a while, but we all get exposed, right? We all get exposed. And I think that was the thing at Iowa that I couldn't deal with was I got exposed because I wasn't showing up for practice in the morning runs because I stayed out too late. You know? I lived with Joe Williams and Jeff McGinnis. What was my excuse for not having a good model right in your house of what you needed to do? And I still chose not to do it. You know, it's like those things haunt you. And unless you deal with them, they're going to haunt you forever. And I'm not the only one that, you know, has that. But as a coach, I could not come in and be a good, effective coach trying to make these kids live up to what I messed up. And I think that's where we have to really look at ourselves and how we're coaching and what do we really want for the kids? Do we want them to be good humans and successful as adults? Or do we want them to be everything that we didn't become because of what we made? And if you're doing that, you're going to run kids off faster than you can get them to sign up, and you'll ruin a program.
Yeah, but I'm wondering though, like even throughout your high school career, like didn't you at times get exposed then too? You know, like get beat at a tournament, you know, not just in high school like during the season, but like in the off season or whatever during training. Like weren't there points where you got exposed there too that sort of tested you?
Yeah, you know, I think the biggest thing in high school was, you know, my senior year, after I'd signed with Iowa, I went to a party and got busted and had to sit out for 6 weeks, you know, and I took it. Like I went and told the principal, I knew we had a good conduct policy. I went and told him what happened. And he said, all right, well, thanks for telling me, suspended. Okay. And so I learned that like you can't expect special treatment because of who you are or what you've done. You know, and my coach Al Billings is a huge influence in my life, huge. And wasn't even hesitation. He wasn't like, okay, well, wait, if we don't say anything, nothing will happen. It's like, you're gonna go talk to Mr. Long. Like that was a life changing moment for me and how you need to conduct yourself. And the coach knew, hey, I was going to score points, but I was going to sit out duels, I was going to do this. And it never even crossed his mind to let me slip. I'd lost a match. You know, I think with a lot of coaches, sometimes they want to win so bad that they'll overlook, see that as an option. Teaching a kid, hey, because that's why they're there. And I love Coach Billings for that, for giving me that hard lesson and saying, we're all going to pay the price because of your choice. You know, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people in wrestling, especially, they don't realize what an effect their actions have on an entire team, because we always hype it up as it's an individual sport, which it is. You do the work, you do that. But when you're sitting out and you're going to score, 5-6 points every time, when you lose a duel by 4, that's you. That's you. That was your choice. Now we all pay for it. And I think that that's something that, as a coach, I have really made a push on with these kids, is understand that living right off the mat often matters more than what you do on the mat. Because our thing at our school is, I don't care if you're a good athlete, if you're a bad person, because that is not going to go well for you or anybody else. And it's, if you think you're bigger than the team, or that you know more, hey, maybe you do, but you got to earn the right to talk about that. When kids these days, they want to put a 5-second clip of them beating up some JV kid in a tournament on Saturday, but they never show themselves getting the snot beat out of them because they didn't listen to you, or they refuse to train and learn how to drill, learn how to drill the right way and do these techniques properly. And that's the thing with these kids, is they don't want to accept responsibility for their choices. But when you make them take that responsibility, that might be the thing that changes their trajectory in life forever.
Yeah. And kind of to your point, your off the field choices or off the mat choices, you will reflect when you wrestle. Like, you can't hide it. If someone's outworking you and doing the right things and you're not, and you go out there and toe the line, most likely, unless you're like an anomaly, like, it's going to show, and you're going to get exposed because they're living the right way and you're not.
That's it.
Can't hide it.
It's living. Like, I made the choice in college. It wasn't a talent thing. And I to this day, I believe, one of my other roommates, Lee Fullhart, was a national champion. Lee and I wrestled all through high school, and I had a pretty good record against him. It wasn't a talent thing. It was, the other thing about Lee Fullhart is, to this day, I don't know. He never did in college. I never saw him touch a sip of alcohol. I don't know if he ever stayed up past 10 o'clock at night. Like, he lived that life. Mark Ironside, the Zaddix, Lincoln McElravy, they lived it. Whereas I was trying to live that on the wrestling mat, but I also wanted to be able to go out and party. It doesn't work. And so when you talk about that, off the mat exposes you. It does. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter. It's going to come out. And, the injuries I sustained weren't during competitions. They were in practice room, usually after I'd been out too late. Like, if you don't take care of your body all the time, it's not going to work out. Doug Schwab has been someone that I love following and watched when he was at Iowa too. And it's like, those are the guys that we need to look at, not the ones who can go out and appear to be partying all the time and still have success. Because there were those guys that could go out and have a couple beers. And that's the thing. They go have a couple beers and then they go home and then they'd be up training, versus going out and get obliterated. And try and show up to train. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that you see that, and how you interpret their lifestyle may not work for you. And you have to do your lifestyle to your, what's true is, are you staying out too late? Are you eating like crap? Gable told me I was going to be wrestling against Iowa State one time. I think I was like 20 pounds over. And I said, I can't make that. He goes, clean out your locker. Ugh. And I made the weight. I got out the tunnel, was coming out to wrestle. He said, go back. You're not wrestling tonight. He wanted to see if I'd make the weight. And he wanted to show me you have to maintain and be ready to go all the time. You can't just go when you think you're going to wrestle. I'm going to tell you when you're going to wrestle. And that was a big thing for me. It was like, maintain your weight, control your weight, because if Gable tells you you're going to wrestle, you need to be able to perform immediately, not go through this whole thing. And, he knew when I made weight, I wasn't going to wrestle the next day. But, I made the weight, got ready to go, and, learned like, hey, if you're not going to control this, one of the easy things to control, he's not going to trust you. And this is back when we were hammers. I mean, this is 97 team. That was a pretty freaking good team at Iowa.
That was all right.
I made the choices not to be able to be a part of it. It's what I think that's the thing as a coach is I want kids, I don't want them to look back full of regrets and have to explain why they have those regrets. Everybody regrets not being a national champ and being an Olympian when you wrestle for Iowa, because those are the expectations. But how do you cope with it when it's done, and the way you feel like people are looking at you as a failure and things like that? And I mean, that was before the internet even. So, I just disappeared. No one knows anything about it. And then I reappear a few years later as a almost 400-pound piece of crap on national TV, when I went on the Biggest Loser. But that was a thing that wrestling helped me in that too. So, I mean, the hard lessons you learn can help you more than any of the wins you ever have, if you deal with them and cope with them right,
Right. Yeah. And, this is actually a good point here. We talked a little bit before we started here about, how what your story can help people in general, whoever listens to this podcast. But it's, how did you handle and get to a point where you were handling regret, if you had any, in a healthy manner? Because like I went through a period, not really wrestling. It kind of was wrestling related, and just I wasn't dealing with my regrets in a healthy manner, So like, what took, how did you start to deal with it in a healthy manner? Because everybody's probably going to have regrets, or maybe, at some point they're going to have decisions that they wish they could have back.
I definitely didn't deal with it in a healthy manner when it ended. I went off the deep end. I went from being a 177-pound Iowa Hawkeye to almost 400 pounds, laying on the couch, drinking beer and eating chips. And, I'm watching a show one night. I'd never seen it before. It was called The Biggest Loser. It was a weight loss show. And I'm watching these guys. I'm like, what a bunch of babies. I should go on that show. I'd win. And I literally like rolled off the couch. I set my beer down and found out there was a casting call in Des Moines the next day, and went down and ended up on the show. But on the show is when I really had to face my demons, because when you're on a reality show, a lot of people think it's just this blast, but you're isolated. We had no TV, no radio, no internet. Like, you're alone for 24 hours a day, and you're working out, trying to win money for this game show by losing weight. And that's when things really hit for me, and was like, I am here because of the decisions I made, and I'm trying to penalize myself for it. Like, I felt like I didn't deserve any happiness. I didn't deserve success because I failed at Iowa. And as the show continued, I started to realize this more and more. And then after about 3 months of filming, we were sent home. And when I went home, I told myself, I'm like, you have to go talk to Gable. You have to go talk to Gable, because I was so ashamed of my failures and that he wasted a scholarship on me. And I walked into his office, and the funny thing, a lot of people, I don't know if they know, but back in the day, we had bleachers in the wrestling room, and people would come watch. And before every practice, Gable would talk to us. And anytime he talked to me, I started sweating like I'd been worked out. Like, he lived a life as an example, and it intimidated me with the amount of realness with him. Like, everything you've heard about him is true. And that intimidated me. So when he'd call my name before practice, I'd start sweating. So here we are 15 years later. I walk into his office to apologize for blowing it. And he says, Hoover, And I soaked my shirt, soaked right through my shirt. He says, I said, Coach, I want to talk to you. And he said, well, I want to talk to you first. He says, you know, Hoover, when you were here, you're always telling me what you're going to do. You're going to get your grades up. You're going to get your weight under control. You're going to do this. You're being All-American. He says, but in the next breath, you're telling me why you had to do it, why you weren't going to class, why you weren't watching your weight, you know, all this stuff. He says, you never told me what you were doing. And I was like, oh my gosh. He says, hey, I just want to ask you, how's your current? And it took me a second. He's like, how's your present? Because if your current's not good, it's usually because your past hasn't been that good. If your current's not good, it's tough to have a good future. And he goes, Hoover, how's your current? And I was like, oh my gosh. You know, like I never thought about that. Like when I was at Iowa, I was telling him what I was going to do. I was going to be a national champ. I was going to do this. But on the same breath, I was like, well, I know I can't wrestle today though, because I got to go do this for class because I'm going to fail. And it really hit home. And I think that's the moment where my life took a different turn, in that I couldn't fix all that stuff. I couldn't go back and be a national champ. I was never going to have that opportunity. And whatever I want to do in the future, it didn't matter if I wasn't doing the right thing today. And that's what Gable said after all those years. He had no reason to talk to me. I wasn't a national champ. I wasn't All-American. I was pretty much a screw up in the big scheme of things. But he took that time to talk to me about that. And then we chatted, and I did. I apologized. And he said, it doesn't matter. It's what you're doing now and what you're going to do moving forward. And I was just like, wow, it gave me that. It allowed me to forgive myself because I felt like he forgave me. And, you know, hey, I've gone back. I've brought kids back from Washington to go to tournaments back in Iowa, and we go to his house and he shows them the trophy room, and it's a relationship that I never thought I had with him because I owned it and then I let it go. But I think people in wrestling, guys in wrestling that don't reach what they want, they mope around until they have kids, and then they think they're going to fix it by getting their kids to be a national champ or beating their kids into being a Tulsa All-American 17 times, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I think when we can accept that, that's when you can start moving on. That's when you can influence other people and become a decent coach. I don't say I'm a great coach, but I'm a decent coach because I don't have to build these kids into what I wanted to be. You know, my own kid who's a junior doesn't even wrestle. He's being recruited for lacrosse. I never did lacrosse, and he's a heck of a skier too, backcountry and free skiing stuff. So that's his love. I can't force my love on him and expect him to make up for the things I failed at. You know, but often we do that as coaches too. Like we think that if these kids succeed, now I'm a success. And the fact of the matter is, you become a success when you allow yourself to be a success now, not what you thought you should have been 20, 30 years ago, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought I read once also that this isn't verbatim, but you kind of went through an identity crisis after you were done wrestling. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
some people, and I think a lot of, it doesn't matter what kind of athlete you are. If you're an elite athlete, you put all your eggs into that basket, and when it's over, because it's going to be over,
Yep.
it's like, now what? And a lot of people go through an identity crisis. So like, how did you figure out your identity that wasn't Matt Hoover, the wrestler?
You know, yeah, it's easy. You know, when I was a kid, I was a wrestler. I
Yeah.
got to Iowa. I'm a wrestler. I'm an Iowa wrestler. And
Yeah.
then when it comes to an end, whether it's by choice or that you've used up your career, you're like, what do I do now? Because everything had been about wrestling. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, who am I? I didn't know. And that's when I went off the rails. But when I came back around, I realized, like, you know what? My goal now, especially when my wife and I got married and we had kids right away, my goal became, I want to be the best dad to these kids that I can be. And I want them to see my mistakes. I want to be open with them. And I want to see, how can I develop these kids into being great men one day and great husbands and great fathers, and changing the legacy? Because the legacy could have been a failed wrestler, a drunk, whatever you want to term in. That could have been my legacy. And then I raise my kids up the same way and say, okay, it's all right. That's what I did too. Look at me, I'm fine. Or can we say, I'm going to change my family name right now? And everything I do, I think about, what is this going to impact my kids and one day my grandkids, hopefully. And as a coach, how's this going to impact these kids now and future teams? But more importantly, how's it going to impact the next coach? Because I'm not going to be here forever. But do I
Mhm.
want them to walk in and have to restart everything because I destroyed it by my choices? Or do I want to develop a program that's going to last? And I think when you figure out that that's what you can be, is like a legacy builder, that can change everything for everybody around you. My kids aren't going to have to experience the things I did because I was honest about it and didn't build myself up to be this fake dad where it's like, I've never made a mistake in my life. They purposely don't do things now because they know what I did. And that is success to me, is when kids can see your successes, but they can also see your failures and learn from them. But we have to be honest about it too. We have to let people see that. And oftentimes we're too embarrassed
Mm-hmm.
to let people see that thing. And we want them to think we're the greatest thing ever. And we only tell them about the successes. And, oh, this one time I wrestled Brandon Slay. And, it's like, hey, I also had some losses along the way. A
Mm-hmm.
lot, and many of them weren't on the mat.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. It is okay, because I'm going to ask you about it. It's okay to also talk about the highlights, like, hey, you wrestled Brand Slay, you may have beaten him. Like, hey, that's okay. That's a good thing too to talk about as well.
Yeah.
Like some of the things I did also ended up going well, but yes, to be true and honest about your miscomings and shortcomings, I'm
Yeah.
just curious, you were saying that, to be honest, a lot of people, it's difficult for them. I mean, you you didn't just be honest, you put it all out there for everybody to see.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
went on this reality TV show that started, I think what the second season may have been when it started to gain some traction, but like you put it all out for everyone.
Yeah. And I think that was something for me to be like, this is where I'm at now. And I think I had lived my life, I'd be out partying and telling people, I used to wrestle for Iowa.
Yeah.
Oh, you must be awesome. And it's like, here I go on this show and, you see yourself as, I mean, it didn't really hit me until I actually saw the episodes start airing, it's like, because in my brain, people are like, oh, you weigh 350? Well, you got broad shoulders. You carry it. I was like, bro, come on. 350 on a 5'10" frame is not being carried well no matter what. So
Yeah.
I, buy into these things too. But then I go on the show and I'm like, oh my gosh. And they always showed me crying because I was this big character wise, the tough guy, tough ex athlete. But I
Yeah.
was feeling pain, man. I was feeling mental pain because I realized how far I let myself go physically, but how much I hadn't dealt with the mental side of it. And, when you're going through that and as you watch the show, you see me changing. And even little things that, I talk with kids about now is I had long hair when the show started because I felt like it made my face look thinner and I was kind of hiding behind it.
I
And then
I
I got a haircut and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was another one of those changing moments. But we find little things to protect ourselves, even when
Mhm.
they really don't. To the outside world, they knew I was huge, I was morbidly obese. But to me, it's like, hey, this kind of maybe people won't notice. And
Mhm.
I think that goes back to exposure and allowing yourself to be open. Is everybody else sees it, but you don't. And you try to live this lie and you're living this lie. And then when you like open up that lie and expose it, like it's free. It frees you. And I think so many of us live in that spot where it's like, if I keep telling myself this, even though I know I'm in a bad spot, I'll get out of it. And you realize like, no, I gotta just tell the truth about where I'm really at. And that's in your wrestling, it's in your career, it's in your family. We want to make believe that if we don't address it, then it doesn't need to be addressed. And usually that's the thing. The thing I would tell kids when I'm coaching, the thing that you think about the most is the thing that needs to be addressed immediately. If you think about grades when you go to sleep, if you think about your weight when you go to sleep, those are the things you have to address. Or if you're worried about getting caught for something you did, those are the things that need addressed. And once you do that, it allows you to be free and focus on the task at hand without wondering when the other shoe is going to drop, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I learned on the show. I mean, you go and watch it, every week, millions of people are watching you flounder around and flop around. And in my brain, I'm still an Iowa wrestler, but my body had other things to say,
Mhm.
and that was humbling. It was humbling to be there and then to talk about, your failure at Iowa when most people would think wrestling at Iowa in itself would be the greatest thing. And how can you say you're a failure? Well, because I had higher expectations and I did not meet them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. But prior to Iowa, like I said, I want to talk about some highlights here, you know.
Yeah.
Like you were a two-time state champ. You were very, I mean, even at Iowa, like you were still you had a very
Yeah.
good, you know, you were a very good wrestler. You won two state titles. Like what was that like to achieve some of the goals that you set out for yourself though at the same time, you know?
That was big. Becoming a state champion was big for me because I started wrestling in fifth grade. I didn't win a single match for almost 2 years. I got pinned my first year, pinned every time. And I'd walk off the mat. And I remember one Saturday, I said, Dad, there's a tournament in Dyke, New Hartford. Can we go tomorrow? He's like, well, are you sure you want to go to that? I said, well, why wouldn't I? Like, it didn't cross my mind. I was getting the crap beat out of me every weekend. I was loving the sport and learning. And I just kept going and going. And he never questioned me again after that. But my high school coach, Al Billings, did a great job of bringing me along and put me, once I started getting good and kind of feeling my oats a little bit, he started entering me in high school tournaments. And then I get the snot beat out of me. And I learned I got to work harder, and then I go on and win a couple state titles and junior nationals, all Americans and finals and things like that. But coach was really good about not letting me get big headed and seeing there's a bigger picture here and getting ready for the next event. So, I won the state title my first year. I didn't even take time to enjoy it. I was like, okay, I should have won by more. And now I got to go right for junior nationals. And then my senior year, the same thing, you win it and you get ready to go. And I think that if I have regrets in this sport, it's not appreciating those big moments, like standing in Vets Auditorium with people down to the edges, screaming and hollering and taking that and saying, wow, I've done something not a lot of people can do. And not only done that, I've done it in Iowa, one of the toughest places to win a state title at any class.
Mhm.
And, but it was like, those were the goals I set out and I was glad I achieved them. But, for me, it was always what's coming next. And even after my senior years, I want to I want to win junior nationals. And, I got in the finals and it should have been what was to come is I had a bad weight cut and had zero energy and went and got smoked in the finals. And this is even day after weigh-ins too. I mean, I was just exhausted and, so I think I learned a lot through the sport and winning those titles was, I mean, even this day as an old man, I have the brackets hanging in the wrestling room because I think it's something that kids need to see. Like you can get this too. And Washington, unfortunately, Washington doesn't care about wrestling that much. There's not that much pageantry to the state tournament. But I always tell kids, you win a state title or you become a state place winner, you're a state champ. You're a state place winner, no matter the class. Like when people talk to me about being a state champ now, they don't say, "Oh, what class?" And oh, by the way, what was your record? You
Mhm.
were state champ. And that's the thing that I think a lot of kids think if they have a loss during the year that they can't be a state champion anymore. And it's like you got to change that mindset. Nobody cares. No one asks you what class it was. And, that's the thing is a state champ's a state champ. The work to get there, pretty similar. You
Yeah.
got to do that work to get that title.
Yeah, I'm surprised a little bit that you didn't, I mean, after taking so long to win and getting your butt kicked, you didn't go, man, this isn't for me, or why am I doing this? Like, did that ever cross your mind when
It
growing up?
never did. It
Really?
never did. I think part of that was my coach
Yeah.
never was like made about winning. He's like, let's try this. Let's learn. I loved the learning. And to this
Hmm.
day, if I could only show technique during practice, that's all I would do. I love technique. I love teaching technique. I love learning new technique as an old man. And I think that was what wrestling to me was a learning opportunity. I didn't have a bad childhood, but wrestling gave me something that I was missing and I wanted to be around it all the time. And I think that was the thing that coach did such a good job was, did you learn? What did you learn? And then, by the time I remember the first time I made a whole match, you'd have thought I won a state title. I just got pinned
Hmm.
the match before, but then I made it for a whole, I think back then kids period, it was like a 3-minute match, 1-1-1.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And I was high-fiving my teammates and they were excited. And I'm like, this is awesome. And I think that was the thing was, am I getting better? Am I getting better? And when I found out that I was, because I didn't get pinned, then it was, I wonder what it's going to be like when I win.
Hmm.
And then, okay, it happened. And I was like, I want to do this. And I still lost. And then all of a sudden I started winning more than I lost. But it was always about that journey and how can I get better? What can I learn from this? And once that happened, I was hooked. I was hooked, man. And I remember in high school working with the Steiners and Jimmy Zaleski and the techniques that they taught me and then I implemented in high school. And people were like, what is going on? What was that? The boot scoop. Remember Lincoln McElravy and the boot scoop?
Yeah,
The
yep,
first
yep.
time I hit that in high school, like, this dude's 171 pounds hitting a boot scoop. What? That's what I love, and that was, to this day, that's my favorite thing is the technique session, the little
Yeah.
intricacies of how a simple movement here can change the whole outcome of that.
Do you remember that first match that you won?
I don't remember who it was against. I think it might have been at the Iowa Valley in Ringo, Iowa Valley tournament. I think is when it was, and it was just like, wow, it was something else. I still have the little trophy,
Nice.
and that's probably, there's two trophies that are important to me in my life. The first match I ever won in wrestling, and my MVP of Belle Plaine Little League Baseball is the only two trophies that are out. I have the MVP of Belle Plaine Little League. It wasn't MVP, most improved.
Okay.
Most improved. It
Yeah.
wasn't MVP. I thought I should get MVP, but they gave me most improved. And I love that trophy because the year before I couldn't hit a baseball to save my life. And I'm starting to hit some dingers and that is in my wrestling room at home on the shelf where people see it every day.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask what other sports you might have played while you were kind of growing up.
And in high school, I played football. I was a pretty good football player as a running back and linebacker and all conference and all that. But my junior year, I went out to the Olympic Training Center and they found that I had a spondylolisthesis, it's a small fracture at L4, L5. They're kind of like, I don't know football. You should do that anymore. And I was kind of, I wanted to, but I didn't. Back then, I probably was physically strong enough it wouldn't have mattered. But going off to wrestle at Iowa, I felt like I should, not take the chance of getting hurt in there. And
Right.
so I played football, but then it was wrestling. When I was little, I did the baseball, football, wrestling, all that. And as I got older, I kind of started focusing. I love freestyle wrestling, so that's why I didn't play baseball. Sometimes you got to give up some things in order to reach your goals, and if you're real serious about it. Some kids can do multiple things, and I didn't feel like that was the thing. I mean, I was wrestling every weekend, freestyle, and traveling around to tournaments, going to the Olympic Training Center and things like that. So, I mean, it was like, that was my, I mean, my mom still, I think to this day is a little upset. I skipped my high school graduation to go to the junior world team trials. It wasn't even like, I didn't care. Like, you're supposed to graduate, right? You're supposed to graduate high school. Like, what's the big deal? But, making that world team that year, I think she forgave me a little bit, but
yeah.
when I went back, got my degree from Iowa and finished that up, she had a big old party because that was the first time she got to see me walk across the stage.
Nice. Oh, so you went back to Iowa and got your degree?
I
Good for
did.
you.
In fact, most of it was because that conversation. Gable was like, I needed to get that degree. I needed to finish that. Like we talk about our past and things we can't fix, but that was something I was going back and getting that degree, and I'm very proud of that. Because I walked across the stage and did all that, even as an old man. I felt old. I was 28, 29 years old, and these little 18-year-olds getting their diplomas, but it was something that I needed to do. And so that's one of the things I'm really proud of, is that I'm dealing with my issues and then going back to say, finish what you start. Yeah. Some things you can't finish because you run out of time. But you mentioned it earlier when we were talking, running out of time. You can get your degree at any time. There's there's colleges are always going to take your money. Back and did it. In fact, with my own son, I told him that if you're not sure what you want to do, don't go. And so this past summer, he worked on a fishing boat in Alaska, and then next week he starts working at a ski resort, in the mountains in the snow because he loves doing that. And then this spring he's going to go be a whitewater rafting guide. I'm like, go travel and have adventures while you're young. And then when you're ready to go to school because then you can be focused on it and do that instead of finding out who you are. I mean, throw an 18-year-old kid on a boat in the middle of the ocean in Alaska. He's going to learn a lot of life lessons. Yeah. That's what I think everybody should encourage their kids to do that. And I tell my wrestlers too, go out and experience life, and see what you want to do and know that, and then go after it the same way you pursue a state title. And that's what's going to make life more enjoyable for you. But, we have this expectation that kids should just go off to college and that's it. As coaches, we want them to wrestle in college, but most kids can't handle that.
Right.
If you're really honest, like, do you want to send a kid off to college to be a college wrestler just so you can say you coached someone that wrestled in college? Or do you want them to go what's going to do the best for them?
Right.
Sometimes that's tough, but they don't understand that, again. And it's that TikTok culture where they see the videos and how awesome being a college athlete is. They don't know how hard it is
Yeah.
to be there, whether you're the starter, whether it's junior college, whether it's Division III, whether it's the Iowa Hawkeyes. They have no clue what that's like after high school, and so we try to talk honest with them about their expectations. And hey, sometimes it's better just sit out a year and go travel the world and experience new things and find out who yourself, and can you function on your own without your little high school
Yes.
sweetheart or a coach telling you what you need to do. Can you function on your own?
Yeah.
Because that's at the end of the day, we all have to do that as we grow.
Yes. Yeah. That's what got me into trouble when I first went out. So like right away out of the chute, I went to Iowa, and it was, no one's gonna make me go to class.
Yep.
Well, maybe I'm not gonna go today. Like, and obviously that didn't work out. So yeah, but when you said you were 28 or 29 walking across stage, so was I. I think I was 30
Yep.
when I graduated. So, but to your point, like, it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of is that, I mean, I got my degree from the University of Nebraska, and I was 30 and was with some 18-year-olds. So,
Yeah.
but walking across the stage, but hey, it's still something I'm very proud of, and I have my diploma right over here. So
And
yeah,
a lot of things with that. Another reason why I'm proud of that is when I left Iowa, it was I messed up in wrestling and I just left. I had a whole semester of F's. I pretty much had to get straight A's to get my grade point up where they would give me a diploma. So, and I had always thought like, I'm just a decent student, but like when I was forced to, like, you don't have an option. Like, getting anything less than a B wasn't even an option for me to get my grade point up. It was so bad. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this was so easy. Like, we make things harder than they need to be
yeah,
because of our expectations of ourselves or whatever it may be. And, you go back as an adult and you're like, what a joke. And I think as a coach, when kids tell me like, well, I'm struggling with this and I don't have time to come to practice because I have to do this report. It's like, what are you doing? You have all the time in the world. School is easy. Just do your freaking homework, and don't be an idiot. That's it. And you
yeah,
you pass your classes and you're eligible to wrestle, but they make it harder on themselves than they need to. And that experience of going back as an adult and realizing like I wish I could go back and smack my 18-year-old self right in the face
yeah,
and be like, get your shit together, man.
yeah,
Because this is not the hardest part of your life. It's not.
yeah. No, the hardest part of your life, I read that you once said that you carried people on my back up the stairs. Nothing is harder than that. Do you still believe that is the hardest thing that you could do?
Physically, I mean, physically, that was the hardest. We always call them like mile sprints or whatever, because you'd run up the stair of the car, but then you have to sprint around the top, and
Yeah.
then you never knew where he's at. He'd hide out behind those pillars. So you couldn't dog it because he might show up, just step out and be like, what are you doing? And Royce Alger would hide. I mean, I remember him hitting people. It might have been Bill Zadek. He hit him with a garbage can because Bill's kind of not going as hard as he could. And Royce steps out from one of those big pillars, just smashed him with those big old garbage cans that are up there. So you had to go hard the whole time. So physically, yeah, but emotionally and things like that. I think, my sister passed away last year. That was a tough one
Wow.
to have that happen. But it puts in perspective everything else. Are your relationships good? Are you helping out the people you can? And it's those are the things that I think now I focus on. And with my kids as they get older, like, are you being the man that people can count on? Your wife, your employer, your kids, are you doing that? And I think those are the things that we always chalk up the toughest times in our lives to, physical things or, so losing someone that you love. But, in fact, yesterday was the 1 year anniversary. That might have been harder dealing with that, because now she's been gone for a year. And I'm like, you have questions, should I have helped her more? She struggled with a lot of things in her life. Could I have done more? And I think those are the things that you look back on as you get older, and like, it's not the things you did do, the good or the bad, it's what you didn't do and how you respond to that. And I think those are the tough times. And, you got to get up and go back to work and today we're setting the wrestling room up because the season's starting, and how do I honor my sister? It's by being successful in my life now. And a lot of times we're like, oh, I want to honor someone by getting a tattoo or wearing something on my singlet. And the best honor you can give someone that's influenced you in your life is being successful and knowing that they had a role in it. My coach Billings, I owe him so much, and I know every time I coach, am I emulating what he emulated for me? Are these guys going to want to talk to me when they're 50? Are they going to seek out my advice when they're 50 years old? Or are they going to want to hate this sport and never be a part of it because of something I did or said or didn't say? And that's the things that I look at now, that those tough times have, created what I am today, for better or worse.
Yeah, how have you kept on this path of resilience and just like being the person that you want to be when something like that happens? All right, it could be anything. This happened to be your sister passing away. How did you still keep going and being the best person of and best version of yourself when, I mean, when something like that happens, it's so easy to just fall off the wagon,
I believe it's because I've seen the other side. I've
Mhm.
seen myself at my worst. I know what I did to make that happen. I know how it felt, and I do not want that again for anybody, myself included. And because I know now my choices affect more than just me. When you're 18, 19 years old, you only think about yourself. But when
Yeah.
you have a wife and a kid and a house and all of that stuff, those choices affect everybody. So for me to ball up and shut down and quit everything and be an idiot, I have too much to lose, and others have too much to lose, and people are counting on me. And so I think that having gone through those tough times and seeing what happened when I went off the rails, I've experienced it. I'm not someone that talks about how great life can be because of all the easy stuff that happened to me. I talk about the hard stuff and why I had to learn those lessons. And honestly, I don't think I would have learned them any other way but to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are smart enough to have something happen like, well, won't do that. Won't do that again. For
Mhm.
me, it took years of wallowing around and making excuses and poor me and this happened. And the fact of the matter is, with the exception of very few things, everything that happens to us is a direct result of our choices, and then how we respond to those choices. And it's not, oh, I had bad luck. I got hurt. I got hurt at Iowa, and that's why I didn't reach my goals. No, I went out and did dumb things, and then I paid for it physically. I got up to almost 400 pounds. No one was sitting there shoveling food in my mouth. I did that. And I think I think that's the thing. And even in my career, my bosses and my reviews talk about how very candid I am in like self reviews, and almost like I'm harder than I need to be. But what I found is that if I am not being honest in my critique of myself, everything slips.
Mhm.
And I don't want to have to rebuild that because of those things. And I think as coaches, are we honest? Like, okay, so we won. Great. Did we beat that team just because their team's super bad, or are we that good? Because now we need to find a new place to wrestle. We have to find new teams to wrestle and improve on that. And, so it's not just in my life, it carries into my coaching too. Of, like, am I doing the things to improve, or am I going to go backwards? And if you start going backwards, how quickly are you going to catch that?
Yeah.
Because before it becomes a real problem. Because we all do. We all have setbacks. We all have failures. But it's how long you linger in those is going to make the decision on like how quickly you come back from it. And I think that's what drives me. And even with my sister's passing, is like, hey, she's not here. I can't go say sorry, or hey, I want to help you, or things like that. It's like, now I have to move forward, and maybe it's helping someone else that you don't know who that's going to be. But if you shut down, you eliminate that possibility.
Yeah. Are you able to give yourself some grace though? I mean, a lot of what you've been talking about is like how hard you are on yourself at times to kind of not prevent you basically from going back to where you were, but like you have done some great things and come a long way. And have you ever been able to sit with that and
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like I have.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't talk about it, but therapy, going to therapy helps.
Yes.
I think a lot, especially wrestlers, have this tendency like, I'll deal with it myself. But sometimes, and it's not going in there and being like, oh, it's saying there are specific instances in my life that I didn't really look at, that, like you said, I was a kid. I can't, I can't do anything about that now. But those experiences, I look at my life, and the things that I've done. When I go to a national meeting, I get to talk to people and share stories that they can't believe that that's my life. And to me, it's like, that's just my life. That's just what I did.
Mhm.
Being on TV, meeting my wife on TV, um, Ironmans, all these things that just to me seem normal, to other people is insane that you had that experience. But I think that's where I learned to be like, wow, I've had a cool life. I really have, the good times and the bads. And that is something where all the decisions I made brought me to this point. And that's something that has really allowed me to be able to give myself that grace from younger years. And even now, if I have a bad quarter at work, it's like, okay, I know how to deal with this,
Mhm.
because last quarter I did awesome, and that is something I've had to, continually work on, is seeing the good things that are going on around. And, my proudest thing is I got I got one amazing wife, but I got two great kids that people all the time talk about how awesome these boys are. And we're talking like teachers and administrators and things like that. And like, that makes me know that I'm doing something right, and that all the choices I've made have helped me develop that, and that's what I'm proud of, is my sons, and that I have a happy wife that enjoys being around me for the most part and helps me out with wrestling. And it's a great partnership on that side too. But it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, when when you tell people, that you met your wife on a reality show, I mean, do you get kind of like side-eyed, or do
Yeah,
they look at you like, really, what? Like,
their heads about explode. Like company meetings and like, okay, tell us something that not a lot of people know, or tell us something. Like, yeah, I met my wife on a reality show. What? And then you have to go into that whole background. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, we did not have a normal dating relationship. I mean, we met on a reality show. I proposed to her on the Today Show on national television, and then we go on all these other TV. Like, it's pretty crazy. And my kid, what's funny is my kids didn't even know about that until this last year. We were working on a project with Netflix. So we're
Mhm.
like, we better tell them. And they didn't even believe us. We had to show them the email from Netflix. And they're like, because we're just mom and dad to them. And
Right. I was gonna ask when you told them, or when they, how they found
they
out
did
that.
this stupid. I said, you guys, when you were born, both of you, when you were born, were in People magazine. Like, what? So we had to get out these memories from the attic. And then they're trying to tell their friends at school about this stuff, and their friends didn't believe them,
Yeah.
And so we're just normal people. Like, people don't even know that aspect of us,
Yeah.
here around us, because we don't still talk about it. And but when the Netflix thing came about, we had to start talking a little bit about that. And so people are just shocked at how normal we are. And but it's crazy, and it's a great story. And meeting that way was interesting, because we
Mhm.
got to know the real people. Like, she knew I was a butthole, and I was grouchy sometimes, because it wasn't like the dating reality shows where they whisked off to these exotic places and
Right.
everything's awesome, and then you find out. But I mean, I think besides like this is for people who follow reality show, but like Trista and Ryan, who were married, we're probably the second longest reality couple to still be married. We're coming up. We just celebrated our 19th anniversary here
Wow.
a couple months.
Trista and Ryan, they were the Bachelor. That was the
Yeah,
Bachelor.
they were like the
Yeah.
first ones.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
So it worked out okay for us. I wouldn't
Good.
recommend
Good.
most people trying to do it that way, but yeah, we did it.
Yeah. Did you watch that documentary, the Biggest Loser documentary? Because
Yeah, we actually filmed for it, and we
I
knew
was gonna say I didn't see on it.
yeah, the producers called us up a couple days before and said they had to cut us out, because we weren't negative. We don't have bad feelings towards the show. For me, it changed my life. I
Yeah.
believe it probably saved it. And so they, if you saw the show, it's a lot of people pretty negative about it, and we didn't have that. So I understood why they cut us out. But there's
Yeah.
some other stuff going on. I can't really talk too much about it, but
That's fine.
there's some other stuff going on now too that allows us to be a little more featured on that stuff. But it
Nice.
was kind of weird stepping back into that role
Yeah.
after all those years of being away, like they flew us down to California to do the filming, and both of us are like, we do not miss this.
Yeah.
We do not miss this. We've settled into being a high school wrestling coach and a mom and dad, and
Yeah.
that's fine with us.
Yeah. Well, the last thing here I wanted to ask you about was your book.
Yeah.
What's not really like what it's about, but like how does a book even happen? Like how do you publish a book? Like I'm sitting here thinking like I don't even know what process to publish a book is. Like
Yeah. That I probably should have waited a couple years before I wrote it, but at that
yeah,
time, someone approached me and like, "Would you like to tell your story?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And so I partnered up with this Sherry Colbert, and
yeah,
she was a writer and she'd written health and fitness books, and so I basically wrote my story out for her, and I'd have to contribute my parts, and it was fun to put it down and see that. I think where I missed it, why I said I needed to wait, it was at that moment I thought I knew everything about fitness and that I was never going to struggle with weight again, and I'd just come off the show. So I'm giving all this advice, and, I was kind of ignorant to, obesity and the mental side of it. And
hmm,
I started, and wrote that, but the publishing, get picked up, and, people think you're going to make $1 million. I think my last publishing check that I got uh, a few months ago was for like 39 cents, so it's, your royalty check. So
yeah,
not a lot of people read it, and I don't blame them. But it was fun to put that down. But I've actually been jotting down some things because I feel like coaches always get books about how to be a better coach in sports and sports and sports, but they don't talk about the tough times and the mental and things like that. So I've been actually doing some stuff to put on paper. One day, I don't know if I'll ever do it or not, but what has helped me as a coach beyond the technique
yeah,
and coaching wrestling, but the mental side, and the toll it takes on your family and how it can consume you, because we get lost on that and the impact it can have on our kids, and what to do if your child doesn't love wrestling like you did. It's gonna be tough for a dad. Some of them just force it into them, and
yeah,
then the kid graduates from school and doesn't want to talk to their dad anymore. There's things you can do, and to be okay with that. And so it's you're not, unless you're Stephen King or um, those guys, you're probably not going to make millions, but sometimes getting your story out, there's people that need to hear your story. And we
yeah,
discount how important our story is to others, because it's like, well, that's my life. But, you could impact someone you've never met just by putting your words down. And
hmm,
like I said, it wasn't a good book, but it was a good book. Uh, I think one of my sons found that in the attic. We had a box of them that I used to sell them when I go to speaking events, and they're like, "What's this, Dad?" It's making fun of me because it's like Matt Hoover's Guide to Life, Love, and
yeah,
Losing Weight. It's like, oh, again, it was a cool experience, but yeah,
yeah. That's actually a point I like to emphasize too. Is I ask all my well, not all of them, but a lot of them, I try to ask them what they do to like reset from wrestling or what they do because it is such a grueling sport. And
yeah,
what do you do as a coach to take a step back or to reset or take your mind off of wrestling? Because like in order to be the best version of yourself, like you have to have that time.
yeah.
So like, what do you do?
The day after the state wrestling tournament, my family and I get on a plane and we go snow skiing. Last year, my
Yeah.
son, this past year, we went to Copper Mountain in Colorado.
Ooh,
Um,
yes. Yep.
this
Been there.
it was awesome. But you know what it did is my son lost in the blood round of the state tournament, and it was he couldn't hear me. He didn't like there was a lot of things, but instead of saying, "Oh, we should have done this," we get up on the plane. We don't talk about wrestling. We go skiing. I think it was the best thing for both of us is
Yeah.
instead of dwelling on the not getting a medal at state or winning a state title, we're going skiing, man. So I shut it down. The kids that wrestle for me, they don't have any practice. They don't have any options to go to any practices. And then, I take a week, we go skiing, and I take another week when I get home to put things away in the wrestling room, because we only get our wrestling room during the year,
Mhm.
to school. And then we start club practices and get going. And, it's that one week is probably the most important week of the year for me, to just not think about wrestling, enjoy time with my family, doing something we love. And we don't talk about wrestling. That we're not talking about next year. We're not talking about what should have happened. But then after I get back, I kind of, do an evaluation of the, year after that. But I think not enough. A lot of coaches go straight from the state tournament and they're burned out from wrestling, and then they're mad about the performance of the state tournament, and kids are fired up, telling them how they're going to be next year, and you just get tired.
Yeah.
And that adrenaline wears off, because if you think about how every kid walks off the mat, their last match of the state tournament. I had 14 kids at the state tournament this year, and everyone walked off. I'm going to train all summer because next year I'm not going to feel this. How many of them did it? 4 or
None.
5.
Oh, well, oh, that's more. Hey.
Trained. But the majority of them don't even step back on the mat till the next season.
Yeah.
They expect something new because at the end of last year they were mad. And as a coach, you got to give yourself some time to unwind and look at things objectively. And you can't do that. And maybe some people can, I can't, and continue training. It's like I have to do a complete shut off.
Yeah.
And I value it.
Yeah. Do you got time for one more question?
Sure. What do you got?
All right. You won the Veterans Open,
Yeah.
the National Freestyle Championship. Like, why did you decide to wrestle in that?
I think the biggest thing was, again, it comes back to almost our entire conversation today. Closure. I wanted to be a national champion at Iowa. Didn't do it. Couldn't do it. What can I do? How can I earn that national title? I got second at junior nationals, wrestled at the worlds as the junior world team, but I never got that national title. And I'm like, I'm going to go do it. And so I just decided to go down there and wrestle. And in the finals, I was losing pretty bad for a minute. And I'm like, I caught a leg lace on the guy, and I feel bad. I probably should have said I was sorry, but I heard stuff popping, but I wasn't going to stop. I just kept rolling on it and came off and won it. And, I get it. If you've wrestled at a higher level, veterans is kind of a joke almost, in the wrestling world. But for me, it was just like, you know what? I got the stop sign that I've been wanting, and walked off, and I never competed again. I never will. There's some people that compete in veterans, and you're kind of like, you gotta hang it up, man. You look dumb. And but it was an opportunity for me to get that, and that's all it was. It wasn't this vision quest, and I'm training to like going to veteran worlds. What wasn't even on my radar. Like it was just having an opportunity to get that national title, and I've never even told anybody about it. Like I don't walk around and call myself a national champ because it's not the same. But for me, it was just that last little bit of closure. And my wife, she thought it'd be cool to see me wrestle once and see if I was as good as I told her. And I wasn't. When you're 32 years old, you're not as good as you were when you're 18. But to her, she didn't know. She didn't grow up in wrestling, so she thinks I'm a national champ. We'll let her live with that.
Yeah. How sore were you after? Is the real question I wanted. Like, I can't even imagine.
It was brutal. I mean, my neck hurt, my shoulders hurt, and my ribs hurt because I gut wrenched me. And you think, I don't care who you are, you step back on the mat, you think you're the best you ever were. That you're that version. You don't think my ribs are cracking and I'm gonna have to take a month for them things to heal again. But I was hurting. I hurt worse after the veteran nationals, and like I don't know, I think it was like 2 or 3 matches than I did after doing an Ironman. I mean, it was that bad.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Special thanks to my guest, Matt Hoover, for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. Cover art created and designed by Kristen Gill. Please feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. And you can check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook page to hear more of my content. And don't forget to check out my website at letstalkwrestlingpodcast.my.canva.site. And as always, be sure to tune in to hear the next guest of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Take care. See you next time.